J'ai travaillé pendant quelques années sur le saint-simonisme, en particulier sur l'histoire du genre dans le saint-simonisme, mais aussi sur ce qu'on pourrait appeler l'histoire religieuse du saint-simonisme, ses composantes différentes, hein, ses composantes religieuses différentes. Maintenant, je suis associée à l'Université Paris-Sorbonne et je continue à mener de recherches sur les transferts culturels et la conversion religieuse et l'utopie.
Alors, l'image est celle de Saint-Simon. Enfin,
voilà.
C'est une image plus ou moins approximative parce que on a un seul portrait de Saint-Simon et on peut penser que c'est une image qui a été faite pour celle-ci pour la propagande socialiste dans les années 1840.
Alors, c'est une image utile. Alors aujourd'hui, pour des raisons techniques, ma contribution sera en anglais, très brève, j'espère suffisamment claire. Alors, le titre de ma contribution est The Van Hagen Cycle and the Saint-Simonian Idea of a European Federation. Today, I would like to highlight the idea of a federal Europe was central to German intellectuals and political activists in Europe since 1849, the year of the International Peace Congress in Paris. At that time, Europe began to cause a sensation and public debate crystallize around the idea of the United States of Europe. The intellectual personality that embodied this European federal ideal was Victor Hugo. Today, I would like to talk about the concept of Europe as a federation as it was discussed in the intellectual network animated by the Varnhagen couple in Berlin. Karl August Varnhagen, and later Karl August Varnhagen von Helse, was born in Düsseldorf in 1785 and died in Berlin in 1858. He was a German chronicler of the Romantic era until the Revolution of 1848 and then subsequent decade of reaction, as well as narrator, biographer, diarist, diplomat, and officer. In 1813, Varnhagen became a Freemason. His mother lodge was a Masonic lodge zu Goldenen Kugel in Hamburg, and then it was also important for many Saint-Simon and also Le Monnier, so this element of this Masonic element. Relationships with Masonic lodges are important to understanding the spread of Saint-Simonian ideas in Germany, so as a means. So Karl's wife, Rael Levin Varnhagen, they married in 1814, also discussed the Saint-Simonian ideas with the literate and Freemason Karl Schall. Investigating Heinrich Heine's ideas, Heine was one of the most famous intellectuals of the Varnhagen cycle, and those of Varnhagen about Europe help us to understanding the proximity of these two friends of the Saint-Simonian movement to its members, such as Le Monnier. In this contribution, I emphasize the importance of the Varnhagen couple in spreading Saint-Simonian ideas beyond the borders of France, finding intellectually gifted interlocutors for this new Saint-Simonian Weltanschauung. This is not limited to the 1830s and 1840s. A true European utopian legacy was transmitted and continually mentioned in political debates in the decades following. Varnhagen knew well the Saint-Simonian movement and its school. He wrote that, I quote, "Straight out of personal relationships, these men inspired him confidence." He came in contact in the 1830s with some Saint-Simonians, even in Germany. He knew cultural personalities involved in Saint-Simonism, as the publisher Moritz Veit. Even well-known Saint-Simonians knew him and mentioned him in the 1840s. In her correspondence, Rael Varnhagen repeatedly mentioned Saint-Simonism and its press, and in the 1830s she came into contact with its followers. Heinrich Heine discussed with her the doctrine of Saint-Simon. He also reported on the spread of these ideas in France and Europe. He commented in 1837, "Yet I have some letters in which she, Ryle, wrote to me about Saint-Simonism, and I think that are the most important thing that ever flowed from her pen." In fact, Ryle completely identified with the social discourse of the Saint-Simonians and regarded it as a secular doctrine. Some months before her death, this moment of hope, belief, and confidence in the perfectibility of the world and its resources opened up. Like Heine, Karl Vanhagen commented on political events and new constellations of power in the Vormärz era in numerous publications and private records. However, for Vanhagen, unlike for Heine, the internal national perspective was fundamental. This means that Vanhagen expected political changes mainly in the nation state, which is Prussian, German state, framework, while Heine observed the status quo from an external perspective and underlined the necessity of an international, which is German-French, so mainly German-French division of political tasks. Only after the failed revolution of 1848, Vanhagen spoke about Europe as an international project. I thank now Klaus Gille for sending me this quotation from Vanhagen journal. So I quote, "Anyone who wants freedom as the exceptional possession of the Germans, who does not want them as the common property of all peoples, is not a real friend of theirs. Fraternization with the French, Poles, Italians, common war against all oppression, that is necessary." So it's a quote from 1848. Another quote from 1850, "Perhaps in the future the United States of Europe will emerge, and there will be no more internal war. Europe will not have 1,000,000 soldiers, but 1,000,000,000 thalers, so money, to ward off the need for general prosperity." Gille writes that Vanhagen, on the other hand, was neither a writer nor a tribune, but rather an antiquarian, an uninvolved observer, whose passivity Heine lamented in a letter to him. In a suppressed passage to his short text, Ludwig Marcus' Denkworte from 1844, Heine prophesies, I quote, "These latecomers of the Middle Ages," so German nationalists, "will soon meet with opponents who are likely to put a terrible end to all their dreams of Germanic and Slavic nationality, so that it will no longer occur to them to mumble on the Germanity of the Jews. In particular, I speak of the fraternization of workers of all countries, of the savage army of the proletarians, which want to destroy all nationalities in order to pursue a common purpose throughout Europe, the realization of true democracy." Heine's words can be complemented by those by Lemonnier at the Geneva Congress, a Congress of 1867, when he states that the only thing to do is to restore the truth of the facts. So I quote, "The Geneva Congress was making a great attempt. It was trying to found, apart from governments, not only without their permission, but it can be said boldly, against their will, a permanent democratic, permanent European institution which, having on the basis of private initiative and the free participation of as many Europeans as possible, to create a European patrie, to rally the liberal democrats of any nation towards the same goal, to become the first seat of the United States of Europe, and from 1867 filled an empty function perhaps unnoticed by the governments, the European political function. So another quote: the tactics of the enemies of the Congress was very simple: to instigate the clerical party, the orthodox, the bankers, and the capitalists, to introduce them in the assembly, to create a majority there, and to repulse by this majority all the resolution, and especially that which declared the permanence of the Congress. That raised such a confusion that the telegraph and the newspapers of Geneva believed for 2 days that the Congress has miserably aborted. So, to conclude, I ask you a question. Do you think that the tactics of the enemies of the United States of Europe has actually changed?